Hanging with Higgins, where author and former prosecutor John J. Higgins interviews his intriguing guests about their lives, knowledge, experiences, and projects. Explore, learn, and be entertained. Come, join us now. Good evening, and welcome to Hanging with Higgins. I'm your host, John J. Higgins. Tonight, I have an interesting and new author, Cathy Rafferty. She is from Canada, and her book is entitled I Am Not Barbie, and is an in-depth view of a woman's relationship with herself and others. Her website is CathyRafferty.com. That's Cathy, CathyRafferty.com. And she's also on Twitter at Rafferty Cathy and Facebook /Rafferty Cathy. Welcome, Cathy. How are you today?
I'm pretty great. Yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm married. I have 3 kids. When I was on my maternity leave with my first son, I kind of realized I didn't want to go back to work. I wanted to stay at home and raise my children. And I've always loved writing, so I started brainstorming ideas here and there. And I guess one day I said, okay, you know what? Let's just give it a try. I'm going to push this idea further. And that's how I came about to write my first book. And yeah, aside from that, I love to be outside, nature, animals, dogs. I mean, I pretty much, my element is nature. And okay. My passion, I mean, books. I've been in love with books since as long as I can remember. So yeah, that's pretty much, briefly, that's who I am.
Good. So where did you grow up?
A little town called St. Catharines. That's on the south shore of Montreal. Well, a little town. It used to be. Now it's pretty much, we can actually almost call it a city. Yeah, it's just on the other bridge. You can see Montreal from my parents' house.
Okay. So you've been a Canadian all your life?
I have, yes.
So you speak French as well?
I do.
Okay. Just checking, because I know Montreal is basically French.
Yeah, it is. Well, my dad's Irish, so it was in English with my dad, French with my mom, and that's why, when I talk in English, I have a foreign accent, and when I talk in French, I have a foreign accent, so everyone's asking me, where are you from? I was like, no, I was born and raised here.
Well, I had been in Toronto, Canada. I got used to everybody saying "a," How you doing, eh?
But you don't really hear that in Montreal, though. I know in the rest of Canada, but Montreal, you don't hear that as often.
I had one of the detectives, his name was Dino, mm-hmm. and he did this wonderful impersonation of Chef Inspector Trousseau. It was, the Pink Panther.
Oh, yeah, it was Steve Martin, yes.
Yes, he was Peter Sellers, actually. And he could do them exact. So, and I think he ended up back in Montreal. He'd been assigned to Toronto there for a while, and then he went back. But nice guy.
Yeah.
So now, when you were growing up, what did you like to do? Because it sounds like you were in a little village or country kind of thing.
Oh, it used to be, yes. Outside. All the time outside. Well, actually, we weren't allowed to come inside if the weather was nice. My mom would literally lock the doors, and we had to knock. I have to use the bathroom. And then it's back outside. She would bring the snacks outside. So, yeah, we would climb trees. We always had dogs, so we would run everywhere. Gosh, yeah, that was you could say it was like a country living kind of growing up. And yeah, like I said before, aside from that, books. My parents had this bookshelf for my brother and I since, I don't know, before we could actually read. And I got into these animal books. I was crazy about animal books, just the pictures. And then my mom started reading us books. And I guess on rainy days or whatever, that's what I would do, sit on the floor, grab even encyclopedias. I used to love them, and I would have my little pencil, read a subject, and then cross it out and say okay, this one's read, and go to another one. And yeah.
I know for me, when I really wanted to learn how to read. I was too young, I guess, back in those days. They didn't teach you when you were 3 or 4.
Hmm.
And I had these medical books. I guess they were my father's because he was becoming a mortician. So, it was, I guess it was pretty gruesome, some of the stuff I was looking at as a kid.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was like this secret code in there that was like could open up the entire world if you could figure it out,
Hmm.
And I think that's what books really do.
Yeah.
So did you have any favorite, authors when you were young?
Um, Not really. I think, well, yes, actually, not when I was young, but at 13 on a yard sale, I remember I saw this book, it looked all like cool, creepy, and I was like, what's that? And it was Carrie from Stephen King. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to grab that one. And I started reading it. I went through the whole book and I fell in love with him. So I read all his books, and I guess my teen years were pretty much sci-fi horror books. But I was always open to other types of books. And then I can't really say that right now I have a specific favorite author or genre. It depends on the
Okay.
feeling, on how I'm feeling. But as I was growing up, yeah. As a child, animal books for sure. 13 years
Well, now
old. Huh?
did Stephen King scare you? Because at 13, I would think that could be kind of frightening.
No, I think I've always been a bit, I don't know how I can say, maybe just a bit a freak on that. I used to love
Okay.
horror movies and
Okay.
horror books, but yeah, some nights I would read it and possibly I would get up and just okay, let's just go pet my dog a bit because I'm freaked out before I would just turn off the light and go to bed. But I like that, how teenagers they like that. They like to watch scary movies and then they tell scary stories. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. No, that's true. I think the first book I read by him was The Shining. I picked it
Oh.
up. I was working like nights,
Mhm.
and I picked it up, at around 9 o'clock that night because it was like a weird shift from 4:30 to 2 in the morning, and it said it's a book you won't be able to put down. And I kind of laughed. I said I could put down any book. Well, let me tell you, I read that entire book in that night. So I was very
Yeah,
impressed with his writing style.
and that book for sure. There are parts in the book where you get really freaked out.
Yeah, I was disappointed when Kubrick made the movie that he didn't make the shrubbery move like it was in the book. So I guess back then they couldn't technologically do it, but it was kind of a scary tale.
It was, but what I love about his writing is the psychological aspect of each of
Yes.
his characters, which in the movies you don't really get to see or feel it. So, but yeah,
Well, well, that's why books many times are better than the movies
they
because
are.
you can get more of a sense of it, and it's your envisioning of it, not
Exactly.
somebody else's.
Exactly.
So you
Yep.
know,
Mhm.
it's a it's a very interesting thing if you think about it that we can take what somebody else talks about and then create this whole movie in our mind.
I know, but that's what's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's very
It's a
cool.
perfect escape.
So now, where did you go to school? Locally?
Yeah, it was locally. Well, obviously in St. Catherine for my elementary and high school. But I went to Dawson College, that was downtown Montreal, and then Concordia University, which is like maybe only 5 blocks away. So
Okay.
I really didn't. Oh well, I went to for 2 semesters. I wanted to try. I was studying psychology, criminal
Uh-huh.
psychology, and I was intrigued with criminology. So they didn't offer that in Montreal, so I went to Ottawa. I tried 2 semesters, didn't like it, came back because it's really different. Criminology is more of a general environment, the population, the crimes, and as for criminal psychology, it's on the person itself. So yeah.
Right. So you wanted to be more like a profiler kind of person.
Yeah, and forensics. I was amazed and intrigued with forensics.
Well, forensics is like a broad field. So you mean you were trying to figure out why criminals did what they did, or you like to gather evidence?
Both, but yeah,
Okay.
no, but you're right on that one. I was intrigued if you. It's kind of weird if you can say. The thing is, I wanted to sit in front of a criminal, if we can say that, and understand what was going through his mind. Like, what happened to you? Why are you the way you are? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Oh, I definitely do. I did some homicide cases myself,
Yeah.
and well, I guess that's where you think more about that kind of
Mhm.
thing. If they're the head of a car theft ring or organized crime where they're pulling money in and that kind of thing, you can understand what the goal is. That's
Yeah,
pretty
the goal,
easy.
yes.
But when you deal with somebody, I wrote the plea agreement for the serial killer nurse in Murder 29,
Well,
and you want to try to figure out why would they do
exactly.
those things.
What happened to you? You know what happened to you that, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I had another nurse who she poison chopped up her husband, and I mean it would have been so much easier to get divorced. And you kind of say, well, why would you go to that,
Exactly.
rather than do the
Hmm.
other. And what we used to say, I used to say to the detectives or other people that were working with me about this stuff, was that you will never really understand the why, because it just won't make sense to you. To them it makes sense, but after that everything is logical what they do.
Yeah.
So you just got to skip over that stage, and then because when you're generally they're trying to hide what they did. So you've got to be able to think, and you've got to think like they do in terms of, if I did this, now what would I do with this?
Exactly. But I learned that afterwards. I got stuck on the why. So that, yeah.
Ah, yeah. I don't think anybody's ever figured out the why, to be honest with
I
you.
don't think so.
It's
There's
and I've said,
outside factors, obviously, the how they were raised, if they went through um trauma. Yeah, sorry, what?
yeah, when I've talked to other prosecutors who did also high profile homicide cases, among ourselves we would kind of remark that, did you notice their eyes? And generally, when you deal with them, it's like there's nothing behind the eyes. I don't know how to explain it unless you've seen it. It's almost like they don't have a conscience.
Yeah.
And
Well, to
and
do what they do.
yeah, and they're really, some of them are extremely smart. It is amazing, how quickly their brain
Yeah.
works. And sometimes I think if you don't have a conscience, you don't have the brakes on in your brain, so you have more brain opened up to do
Oh, you see, that's just, yeah.
nefarious things.
I like how he said that. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds very it's smart. It's a smart way to see it. Yes.
Yeah. So, it's, I always thought the profiling stuff was interesting, but then again, even the gathering of evidence is, the techniques that some of these criminologists use are amazing. We had uh, an FBI, um, I don't know, it was like a particle expert. He used tape on everything. Would just tape everything that he could tape, whether it was clothing, the floors, or whatever, and then he would analyze what came up on the tape,
Really?
which was, quite fascinating. One of the things he found in the woman who chopped up her husband, he found basically human sawdust in the where you sit in the car, because she moved the
That's
car.
disturbing.
And yeah, but if you don't have somebody who knows to do
Exactly.
that,
Yeah.
you would have missed all of that.
Exactly. Yes.
So, and I always say this: these criminals think that they're smarter than us. They don't understand it. It's just not my brain you're dealing with. I can reach out to many people and gather a team. So we've got many brains looking at it. You know. So, but and you're also interested in psychology. Why the interest in psychology?
Probably trying to figure out something about myself.
Okay.
Like possibly everyone who goes into psychology, you're fascinated with other people, but then again, you're probably wondering, because I've always been a bit, I don't want to say like different, but I've always been a bit of like an outcast, outsider. I've had friends, but I mean, I wasn't really the popular person, but I was not bullied either. But it was just like, you had the kids and then you had me, like sitting in the back of a room, or even today, if there's a room filled with people, I'm probably at the back, somewhere in the corner, just I observe and analyze people's behavior. I've always been fascinated by that. Whatever situation people are going through or whatever conversation they're having, I get zoned in and I try to, I don't know, I'm just,
Yes, I do. I think that's a common thing with many writers. Is that
yeah,
we're basically observers,
yeah,
because you couldn't write about what you're going to write about if you don't observe well.
no, exactly. And I find it harder to actually express. You know, I mean, talk about something like in my head, everything is so clear, and when
Uh huh.
I talk it out, I'm like, oh no, this is not coming out like it's in my head. So I'd rather just grab a pen and start writing down. No, really, I'm not.
Well, listen, you're not alone in any of that. We have a saying that when you do an opening for a trial, it's there's the opening that you practiced, there's the opening you gave, and there's the opening you wish you gave.
Yeah,
So,
there you.
you
That's
know,
pretty much it.
it's because we are our own harshest critics, I believe.
Definitely.
Now, your book, you have the title "I Am Not Barbie." So, why did you choose that title, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it's I am not a Barbie. Um, what attracted me about that title is like, when you say Barbie, you have the whole image of the perfect woman, tall, blonde, blue eyes.
Uh huh.
Um, I loved it because it's kind of a contrast to what I actually want to the general woman. I mean, to understand what's in my book, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be who you are and perfect for yourself, for the people around you. Because nowadays I find that with the media, the movies, music videos, the cover of magazines, you have the perfect image of what's a bit unrealistic for a woman, even for young girls. So I just wanted to make the contrast. You had the perfect image, but here's what women really are.
Right.
But nothing against
But that's
Barbie. My daughter loves it. It's all good. It's just
well, yeah, but it's a plastic toy.
it's a
You
comparison. Yeah,
know.
exactly. Used for a certain image. So.
Right. And I think that a lot of the media, with the models and actresses and whatever, you have to understand they have many people, putting makeup
Exactly.
on them and working with them, and then they're now
hmm
photoshopping
Like they
and
do look beautiful. They're gorgeous women. But how long were they sitting in a chair getting their makeup done, and how long was the guy editing well, photoshopping the picture before it was on the cover of the magazine?
right. And that was one of the things I liked about your description was that you basically started about talking about one of the most important relationships anybody has, and that's with
Mhm, mhm.
themselves. And if you try to judge your insides by other people's outsides, everybody's going to fall, flat.
Yeah, and I think what's
But
important, what most women, I don't want to generalize, but I think most women would agree with me, is that we don't take time to do an introspection of ourselves. We think
uh-huh,
about our husband, our kids, we think about all these people, and then when we stop and think about ourselves, most of the time, well, a lot of times we're just gonna say like, oh, I'm so ugly today. Oh, look at my hair. I don't fit in these jeans. I'm so fat. And then we compare ourselves to these super beautiful women, which were like bombarded with images everywhere. So yeah, yeah, I think it's important for a woman to just stop and take a breather and say like, okay, who am I? What do I like to do? What am I worth, and why?
I don't know who said it. There's someone who came up with the statement basically that you should be being yourself because you're a unique human being. There's no one else who's
Exactly.
like
Yes.
you. And you need to use that, whatever that set of tools or equipment or talents that you have, to the best of your ability. The problem is I don't think people really tell us that enough.
No, we're bombarded with all these
Comparisons.
Exactly, and who we should be, what kind of work how much money we should make, and oh, look at my neighbor's new car, maybe I should get another car, and look at her shoes, and oh, he's got a promotion, what am I doing? It's just like, just stop, and who are you? Who do you want to be,
Right. So, were you along that path when you were in college, or did that come later where you started that level of introspection?
Oh my God, no, that came when I was 23, 24, at the end of my relationship with my ex.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can actually say it kind of came naturally. Because I went through hell with him, but I wasn't like, I don't want to say I'm a victim because I kind of volunteered for that kind of relationship. But through it, I saw myself, okay, this is who I want. Yeah, that's what happened. Exactly. That's what happened. I thought to myself one day, I'm like, okay, I'm not happy. What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And okay, so this is what I want. I am not going to get that with him. And I was on a downward spiral. It was crazy. So, yeah.
Well, that was good that you were able to pull yourself out. I think that a lot of people get into relationships that may not be the best for them. I don't know that it's always that you jump into it with that in mind, because a lot of times the people who are toxic are very good at putting a mask on and showing you a whole other side of them that you don't find underneath until you're around them for a period of time or whatever. You probably go to any divorce court and you could watch that in action.
Yeah.
You see these two people who were allegedly madly in love at one point, were going to spend the rest of their lives with one another, and now they are absolute adversaries.
Yes.
Nitpicking and fighting over the bizarrest of things.
But sometimes the signs are there at the beginning. Like if I take my relationship with my ex, for example, I was working as a receptionist at a recruitment agency, so he came looking for a job. And right out front, he gave me his prison card. I'm like, what are you doing? Because I was asking for ID cards, and he didn't have any. So I was like, okay. Like, the signs were there. Like, I don't want to sound like I was stupid or anything, but I think I was looking, or I needed, I don't know, to be a rebel maybe. Like, here comes the bad boy, good looking, I was like, oh, you know what? I want to experience this. I want to see what it is to just go crazy,
Or you'll fix them.
Oh, yeah, that happened. No, but it did. At some point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to help him. And I kept on thinking and hoping. I was like, oh, no, he's going to change. And the more I thought, like, he's going to change, the worse it got. And then I was on his case, and he was freaking out. No, it was chaotic.
It is very difficult for the leopard to change their spots. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible. Many people do, but it's not the general way things work.
No.
I was just interested in the age because years ago I had read a book by Gail Sheehy. She'd written this book called Passages and talked about, I guess more in the mid to later 20s, that a lot of people started to re-examine themselves. And when I put some other parts of psychology that I was studying into that, is that I really believe that we come to a crisis at some point because the ego, the defense structures we build, start from the time that we're infants.
Oh, yeah.
So as you keep building on top of it, but an infant has no understanding on how the world works. So the foundation isn't like on bricks, it's like on popsicle sticks.
Exactly.
So you get into your 20s and you start finding out, hey, this really isn't working for me. And then I think there's two kinds of people. There's the one set of people who decide, well, I don't care whether it's working or not. This is who I am, and the rest of you are wrong. And so they never change. They usually get worse over as they age. And then there's the other type, and you sound like that. It's like going, there's something radically wrong with me. I need to go back and figure out what this thing is.
And you have to do it yourself because, I have had my parents, my brother, my friends, they were just looking at me like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? And oh my God, I would have conversations with some of my good friends, and they'd be like, "Okay, Cathy, you have to wake up. It's lunatic. You can't just keep going on like that." I'm like, "Yeah, no, everything's under control, you know." Yeah. So after a few, if I can say, slaps in the face there, I was like, okay. I woke
Yeah.
up one morning. I was like, no, 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 no. This is not working. No.
And it really is some of the hardest work that you have to do, because you really have to, it's like you've got to use your own mind to repair
Yeah.
yourself. Even if you're seeing a therapist, the therapist can help you, but you really need to do that work.
They give you tools, but
Right.
if you're
If you know to listen for the
exactly,
tools.
you have to be ready for them, and you have to have the will to change. And sometimes they're major changes. So yeah, but
And I've also found that not all therapists know how to give you tools. They will pat you on the head, or they will guide you, but never really give you the methodology of what you need to be doing for yourself, so you become dependent on them.
But yes, and I also think if you haven't gone through the same kind of situation, you can't really be 100% like the best person to help someone. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. When I was a counselor on a hotline at college, and I remember arguing with one of the, I guess,
Mhm.
advisors, that there was somebody that I was dealing with, and it was not going well. And I said, you need somebody else to deal with them. They said, you've got to be able to deal with everybody. And I said, I think that's very dangerous. If your personality isn't working with that
Yep.
person, you should get yourself away from them and get
Yes.
somebody who's a better,
Exactly.
fit. Be humble
Mhm.
about it. Not that you can solve everybody's
No,
problems.
we can't be a hero for everyone. We have to be our own heroes,
No.
anyways. Yeah, that's what I believe.
Yeah. No, I think that's very
Yeah.
true. And the other thing I think that a lot of people do is that they get out of a bad relationship, and then they find another carbon copy. Although the hair color and the eye color are usually different. But, I've had friends that you would watch them, and it would be like, oh, my new girlfriend is so different, or my new boyfriend is so different from that terrible one I was with before. And you go, oh my God, it's almost the exact same personality.
But this is what I call like a secure or comfort bubble. That's what they know. I find these
Right.
people are like, I don't want to generalize. I don't want to judge people, but I find they might fall into the insecure personalities. Like they go back to the same kind of relationship because that's what they know. So that's what they unconsciously are more comfortable with. So yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that was very insightful of you to get there and not, have five of
Oh
them.
God, no. No, 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 no.
You
I
know.
think what happened with me, anyways, what I experienced is I knew what I was getting into. Maybe not as I probably didn't know how bad it would get at the end, but I kind of volunteered for it. I've always been a bit of a rebel, if I can say, and I guess
Okay.
I needed, for some reason, to live these kind of situations, this experience, to actually grow. I mean, yeah, I think I had to go through it and to make me live like what I'm living right now, to be the person I am right now. Because I don't know how to explain it. Because it didn't happen like, oh, hey, do you want to go on a date, blah blah. I knew he was out of prison. I knew he was like a bad boy, and I just decided, you know what, I want him. I want this. I
Right.
want, yeah. And I came out of it myself one morning. I just woke up and I said, okay, I'm done with it. This is not for me.
Right.
I've lived what I wanted or needed to live, and yeah, so let's move on to something else, something better.
Right. Well, the general rule is the odds are not good if the guy's just gotten out of prison and you're dating him. But
Exactly.
that's
No, but it doesn't. No, yeah, I know it's.
and dating is one thing, but then getting really involved is a whole
No,
other.
but I
So.
admit to it. I don't want to play the victim to something that I knew.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, this brought me to where I am today and who I am today. So it was a huge learning process that I think maybe I actually needed it because, like I said, I was a bit of a rebel. I've always been on the wild side, and this kind of calmed me down and brought me back,
Uh-huh.
down to earth and what life is about. And now I'm like almost an angel.
What's important. Right. What's
Yeah,
important.
exactly. Yes.
So in your synopsis, you talk about, not only the relationship with yourself, but, with other women and friends and
hmm
family. So how did that all translate?
Naturally, it's just if because we don't see ourselves like other people see us. So let's say you wake up in the morning and you do your hair, you go to work and you're all smiley. You're gonna reflect happiness, a happy, powerful, secure woman. Whereas if you're insecure, if you're insecure and you're always you kind of carry your own little shadow or cloud over your head, it's going to reflect on other people. And I
Uh-huh.
stress it when you have children. Do you want your children to see you, face challenges in life, full force and happy and strong, or do you want to see your children see you whine and complain? And obviously everyone struggles, right? Life is filled with struggling, with challenges. So what kind of role model do you want to be for your friends, for your family, for your children? So that's basically how it briefly translates. Yeah.
Right. It's funny because I have this saying. You ever see that movie, The Mummy? It's the new version, not the Boris Karloff version.
The Mummy.
Yeah, it's got Brandon Fraser in it and
Oh yeah, yeah.
Rachel
They go
Weisz.
in the pyramids. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, and the example I always use is that if things are going badly, you can either be like Brendan Fraser, who's the
yeah.
hero, or you can be Benny,
Who's been?
the guy, the guy who's like sucking up to the mummy, the bad creature,
Oh, so
all the
yeah, so there
time.
you go. But yeah, no, I don't remember that part of the movie. It's been too long. But yeah, exactly.
So my goal is always to be the hero type, because if it's going to go badly, you might as well go in there
Yeah, and
swinging rather than skulking around.
exactly. It's all a question of attitude. The situation's not going to change. So you can either be all negative or the attitude is what's important. So, yeah.
Yes. No, so it's funny that you came to the same conclusion. You just express it in a different way. But it is. I mean, and that's a big part of life, because if you have the wrong attitude with things, nothing will ever work.
It makes
And
everything harder.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Because
And I always love this thing.
no, I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, whatever the situation you're going through, there is always a positive side. Always, always. And I've heard people say, well, I'm realistic. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is the situation. It's the attitude. You have the option to choose how you want to face it. So, yeah.
Right. And if things go badly, you can learn from it, or you can try something else. I mean, a lot of people who've been successful, they started businesses, went bankrupt a
Yep.
couple of times before they finally got it
Exactly.
right. But they were willing to take the risk.
Exactly. And they saw it as a learning process.
Right. I always love that thing with Thomas Edison with creating the light bulb. The reporter said to him something that, Mr. Edison, you've tried 10,000 times to get this light bulb to work. Don't you feel like a failure? He goes, no, now I know 10,000 things that don't
So there
work.
you go. Yeah, exactly. I love this.
Yes. So it's a good way to live your life, I
Yeah.
believe. Now, this is I couldn't help but have to ask you these questions, because they kind of popped up to me. In your book, you mentioned the hormonal cycle of women. And I know that you try to give advice to men on how to handle it. So I would love to hear some of your thinking on that.
Okay, because we can't really escape it, huh? I'm a woman, and sometimes I even say it. I know I'm a complicated person. I'm a woman. Women are complicated. You can't. The hormonal cycle. I mean, we have all these chemicals going through our bodies, especially what's called PMS, because we have a concentration of hormones. We have the estrogen, we have the serotonin, all of this going like crazy in our brains, and these are all brain mood chemicals. So you can either laugh 1 second, cry the other time, say to your husband, "Oh, I love you," and then, "I am so annoyed with you." But the truth is, it is a bit kind of out of control. But once you learn about it, and when you know it, and you start, you get to know yourself, your body, and you say, okay, this is my time of the month. Okay, I'm just gonna take a breather. I get impatient. I know why. Just knowing why you're impatient and just saying you're impatient. Like sometimes I tell my husband, I'm like, okay, no, this morning just. I'm really, really impatient. And he knows it. He sees my face like, oh, okay. But just saying it, already I'm all better. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? And
diffuses the power.
It does. And yeah, for men, that's what I say. Like, just understand that it's kind of a bit out of her control. I say a bit because obviously, like I said, you have all these crazy mood chemicals going through your body. But if you just stop and say, like, okay, I'm mad, just saying that makes you feel better. Just saying I'm impatient, you're getting on my nerves, it makes it better. So what I say to men is just understand that. Say, okay, she needs her space, okay. And the worst thing you can do is say, oh, is it that time of the month yet? Oh, no, don't do that. That's the biggest mistake.
Fighting words,
then off goes the explosion. Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's why I just thought that was kind of amusing when I read that. I was like, okay.
I put a little story in there in the book. Like I said, like I use little personal stories to make it a bit more fun and real. So I put a little story of what happened between my husband and I, and how I totally overreacted to something totally ridiculous, and and woke up the next morning with like the sheets over my head, like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. So yeah.
Right. Well, I think we men do that at times too. It may not just be, hormonal. It could just be, I think I consider human beings to be like high-strung creatures that, it's like you have a purebred animal. They're usually more spirited than the mutt kind of animal. And, sometimes that high-spiritedness is got a lot of great things to it, but it's got some terrible downsides.
Oh, for sure. And men are more emotional than we think.
Well, we're basically raised not to be emotional, which is really a confound.
I know.
Because, the whole idea that you cry or be sad or whatever, it's like, toughen up.
I know. I was raised like that, even myself.
And you don't process things well that way, because there are things in life that are just sad. You lose a pet, you lose a loved one, you lose a job, you lose a relationship. I mean, it takes time to get over those things. It's just not.
Yeah, and the emotions they're there for something. You have to live them. So yeah.
Yes. So now you also have a guide in your book about healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. So why don't you give us a little bit about what somebody should be looking for?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, especially nowadays. I would say respect is the first one. Obviously, if there's no respect and trust, I would say trust and respect are correlated. The communication, the love, just the kindness, the compassion. I mean, and you have to. I always say trust your gut instinct. If you're with someone and you're always a bit second guessing, or you're not sure, you're doubting, well, then maybe you should try to analyze it a bit more. I know this might sound extreme, but if you're into a healthy relationship, you're just gonna know it. You're not even gonna second guess it. You're just gonna feel it. You feel it deep down inside, and I mean, I have all these guidelines in there, but briefly, that's what it is. And I always say, especially women, I don't want to, sound sexist, but we have strong instincts, gut instincts, the intuition. You'll just know it. And if you might sometimes doubt a certain behavior, I had this late meeting, and he comes home and you have a doubt, then just exploit it. Just ask the question. Just don't be afraid to ask the questions. If the guy loves you and it's a healthy relationship, he'll just be out front with you, and if yeah, basically that's what it is. I could go into all these other situations or examples, but yeah.
So it's respect and communication is what
And
you would
trust,
say?
which I find is the same.
Okay.
Kindness, compassion, support. Yes, this is super important.
And I think one of the other things I think is important is that sometimes, because I think intuition is really a very powerful tool, and I think men have intuition too. So I don't think you have an exclusive arrangement with that. But part of the whole thing with intuition is you've got to act on it to a certain degree. It's like calibrating an instrument. So where you may think it's 100 degrees and it's really 40, it means you got to change it.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just because we rationalize it. It's there
Right.
1 second, the next second you're rationalizing for like a few minutes, and yeah.
And then I think the other piece with intuition is that sometimes, not everybody comes from a great background, so that can skew everything, and you have to realize that not everybody is like your family of origin. So you may have to recalibrate as you go along, as you grow up, because eventually you've got to be responsible for yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
And I also believe that unless you're basically healthy, you can only get what you can give. So if you're not really healthy, you have a tendency of being more attracted to people who aren't healthy. Water seeks its own level.
So exactly. That's why I say you have to it's the same thing for men, but that's why I say to women, if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, it's going to be hard to have a healthy relationship with others. So, yeah.
Right. And again, that's something that I guess maybe the self-help books are starting to talk about, but it wasn't, the way we're raised to look at that. At least my family origin was sorry, I have one cat doesn't like
I heard that.
So
there's a fight going on there.
Yeah. So now that we've had a little interruption, but a lot of these things are really important for people to learn, and I think the ultimate goal to me is always to develop yourself. If you can develop yourself, then you can give more to the world.
Exactly, and sometimes we talk about it. It sounds easy. I've heard people tell me, like even family members, yeah, but you've got it all figured out. Oh no, I don't. Every day I learn more on myself. It's not easy, and you don't. I mean, even if I die when I'm 100 years old, that last day I'm still going to be learning something about myself.
Right, and that's the way it should be. Because people who don't continue to learn. There was another. I love these old sayings sometimes. Is that somebody had, and I don't remember the people who do the quotes, but the person had said that if a man, it could be a man or a woman, doesn't change over time, they become a caricature of themselves. So they become like a cartoon of themselves, and because they stay frozen in a time, and they keep trying to stay in that time, and things have moved on, and they need to move on as well.
Yeah. And I truly believe that in order to be happy, you need to keep growing as a person. Just not stay in your little comfort bubble. And it's not easy. I don't want to make it sound easy because it's not. But I think that's a good way, a good road or first step to happiness. Yeah, I truly believe that.
Right. Now you also talk about women labeling themselves and having different roles and that kind of thing. Would you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it labeling, but having roles. Yeah, I have this little section that's called being a lover, a wife, and a mommy. Basically, what I'm saying is I don't want to confine them into that. But I mean, if you take me, for example, I'm a lover, I'm a wife, and I am a mommy. And most women would have these roles at some point in their life, or a lot of women anyways. So basically what I say in that section is like, don't neglect yourself, don't neglect your partner, be a good role model for your children. When I started researching on that topic, I was baffled. I mean, I read that I don't have the numbers right now, but a lot of men resent their children because once they're born, the woman, well, their wife would kind of neglect them. They would give 100% of their attention to the kid, and the husband would feel like left out, and they would resent their children. I was like, oh my God, this is not good. You don't want that. It's really unhealthy. So yeah, I have this section saying, like, even if you have 10 kids, just have this one night a week. Go out with your husband. Just even if you're just driving around, have in-laws or your parents come watch the kids, a sitter, and just I mean, we've had afternoons, my husband and I were just like, you know what are we doing? Oh, I don't know. So my mom would come over, we go in the car, we just drive. We drive around and talk. Sometimes we don't even talk, but we're together. We have this connection. We hold hands in the car. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Sure. So. Well, I mean, having children, I mean, that's a whole, it's a whole other set of responsibilities that come. It becomes a priority. I don't know how it doesn't, because they can't take care of themselves.
But be partners.
So,
right. The mom and the dad.
Well, again, you're back to the respect.
Exactly.
Trust and communication.
Yeah, you choose that person to build a life with, to have children. Well, you be partners in that relationship. Well, when it comes to raising the children, and when you're alone in the bedroom, but that's a whole different thing, So yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then you also had something where you were discussing issues about women being bosses. So I had a number of courses back in as I was getting my undergraduate degree in psychology. For some reason in the early 80s, the big focus was on sex differences. So I had biological sex differences and developmental sex differences and whatever. And I had one course that was dealing with I guess it was sociological sex differences. And I was a little bit older because I'd worked in industry before I finished college. And it was a woman professor, and she had asked me at some point about men in power, and how men could be obnoxious with power. And I had said to her, I said, well, I hate to say this to you, but power is its own force, and it affects people, male or female, in a different way that you're pleasing power. I don't think it's a sex difference. There weren't a lot of women bosses back in those days, but it's going to cause people. Certain personalities are going to keep seeking more and more, and some will be restrictive. They will not help anybody else. Other times, some people get in there and they're very helpful. They're mentors.
Yeah, and I think it's been like that for ages. I mean, power can be good, but it can be very, if I could say, a dangerous tool. If you see what happened throughout the years with kind of, maybe I'm threading on a delicate line here, but let's go back to the time of the kings and the queens, the power, our government, religion. I mean, you can either use it a good way or in a bad way. So same thing as I'm going to say women bosses. Some of them have a tendency maybe to be a bit more bitchy. Sorry, excuse my French. But then you have others who, like you said, it's not exclusive to men. It's the same thing for women. I don't think they act differently.
Right.
But yeah, that came up because I was thinking like in the 60s when the woman, the whole movement and the votes, and they wanted to be equal to men. And I mean, we came to a point where, because it's still there's still inequality in the workforce between males and females. So as I was thinking about that, I'm like, okay, women fought these past generations. They fought to be equal to men, to be seen as equals. And then when you look at movies or music videos, I bring that up again, and you see them like half naked and shaking their bodies, and they're used. No, but seriously, they're used as.
Right, I understand.
Like
sex
Yeah, or
objects.
even if you go at bars, I don't go out anymore, but in the bars or clubbing, there's like, it's like a meat market that people say nowadays. I was like, why did
Right.
they fight so strongly to become equals? And when they're almost there, then all of a sudden, boom, we're back to being objects, whatever, like you said. And but then again, I'm generalizing because you have all these very smart, intelligent women. They're women bosses. I mean, there's this new book that came out, Lean In, and women in their 30s, and there's this whole new movement too. So I think there's like a paradox here that I don't know, it kind of intrigued me, and I wanted to know more about it and read about it. And then this very good friend of mine, she's a boss, she lives in LA, so I started asking her questions, and yeah, so I thought maybe it would be interesting to put a section of that in my book. So that's how it came to be.
No, it's interesting that you took that
Yeah.
topic on. I've had both men and women bosses, and I've had some men that were brilliant and great guys, and I had other ones that were idiots.
Yeah.
And the same thing with women. I had some that were really wonderful people, and I had other ones that were just
Yeah.
crazy. And I don't know that it's like a sex kind of difference in that, because once certain people, they have authority, it can really do strange things to them.
Exactly. And then I started wondering, I'm like, okay, well, if a woman's a boss and she's very confident and she's like this strong and she has this great aura around her, are men being intimidated by her,
Right.
And so, yeah, that brought me to another, a person that her name is Amy Anderson from Links Dating. I don't know if you know that company. She's in the Silicon Valley. And yeah, she has this dating service for all these elite, powerful women and rich men, and I have that in my book, an interview with her, and I was like, okay, but do you think they're intimidated by powerful women? So
Right.
yeah.
Well, in the United States, we may be having a real test of that coming up. So,
What? Sorry.
well, if Hillary
So
Clinton
there you
runs for
go.
president, you'll be hearing a lot of different.
Yep.
I have to say, one of the most brilliant women I have
Exactly
ever
what I was going to
seen.
say. You have the example
So,
of very,
yeah,
very intelligent, smart, strong.
just
Yeah,
brilliant.
she is.
I mean, and can stay a course. I mean, she stuck with Bill regardless of his philandering and whatever. But just a stand-up person. And I'm sure we're gonna we're gonna see the ones who don't want
Oh, for sure.
any kind of female, whatever. So it'll be interesting to watch all the mud campaigns that begin.
But she's a
I don't
great
know if
role model.
Canada's as bad as New Jersey, but or New Jersey, all of the United States. Our political campaigns are more mudslinging than they're ever talking about what
Yes.
they're going to do. So it's just like crazy. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit of questions about your experience with writing the book, because I have a lot of authors that listen as well. So how long did it take you to write your book, and then where did you go to try to get it published? That sort of
To
thing.
actually write it took about 5 to 6 months. But prior to that, there was a lot of research. Obviously, there had to be a lot of research, and I had my theories on this and that. I made observations, so I put everything down, and then I was like, okay, this is what I think. This is my theory on this, but maybe I'm wrong. So I had to go and read all these books and blogs and articles, because I mean, you can think of something, have your own opinion and theories, but it doesn't mean they're right. There's this whole new set of proven data that says against, what you're thinking. So
well, even data you got to be careful of, because that doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth either.
Exactly. I went through this kind of situation, but someone can go through the same situation but come out of it completely differently, or have views about it completely different than mine, opinions. So yeah, for that book, there's been a lot of research, a lot of reading, and a lot of note taking. My God, it was actually like writing an essay.
Right, or like a doctoral thesis, it sounds like.
Well, no, but the thing is, I wanted to make it, like I said, a fun book. So in my sections or chapters, you have maybe like possibly like the first few paragraphs that are about um, uh, statistics or information that's loaded with information, but then I kind of bring my own opinion about it, and then I have personal stories, so people don't go through it and go like, "Oh my God, it's like, what is she talking about?" Yeah, exactly. So it's like, "Oh, okay, there's all this information. Ah, ha ha ha. That's a funny story to go with it, you know." So.
Well, let me ask you
Yeah.
this: did you wake up one day and say, "I'm going to write this book"? How did you get to that to make that decision?
No, that came with a few conversations that I was having with my husband. It's kind of weird how that topic came, because I can't say I have a perfect relationship, but it's ideal. And when we look around us, and I've had a friend that was having a really, really hard time with her relationship, and now it's going perfectly. So, I'm really happy for her. But she was having a lot of difficulties, and she would call me 5 times a day, and we would just talk for hours. And I was like, oh, poor her. And I would talk about it with my husband, and it's kind of hard because I don't want to name names or anything. But everything, sure. I started thinking about all these relationships and comparing. That's what I do. I compare sometimes. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I think something went wrong along the way, because even we would talk together, like at a coffee shop or at a restaurant, and we look at the a couple next to us, and they'd both be reading. One would be reading the paper, another one on her phone. I was like, what's going on? Where's the connection? I don't see the connection between couples anymore, or you see it not as often as you would see, I dare say, but that's what I saw. You've got these couples that are like distant. I don't know how to explain it. Then you have these ones who are holding their hands, and I've had a situation where I would be at a store and alone. Let's say I'm alone at the store, and there's this family coming along, and the man would actually slow his pace so that his wife or girlfriend would not see that he's staring me down. I was like, no, what is going on, So it might seem extreme when I express it like that, because like I said, I write better than I actually talk. But
no, I understand. Well, I'm always interested in that. There's this decision that we make when we're going to write a book, which is, it is an ordeal. I mean, I find it to be meditative for me, but it's puts you in another place. Even maybe when I write novels, I'm in a fantasy world, but even when I wrote legal briefs or whatever, is that your focus is totally there. But it's a big thing to take on.
Yeah, it is. And basically, what I thought one day, I said to my husband, oh, maybe something went wrong. I don't think people are into the relationships for the same reason as before. Or do they even know what it means anymore to actually be in love and want to do, build a life with someone? And again, I don't want to put everyone in the same corner here, but yeah, I thought, even and I was thinking of a woman. I mean, I want women to come back to what it is to be a woman, embrace your femininity. Just stop and think, who are you, who you want to be, and so, yeah.
Right. So it's like you want everybody, and so you have a mission basically with your book, is you want to, have people self-actualize themselves, like Carl Rogers, and develop themselves, and then develop a relationship based on that.
Exactly, and also I want women to empower themselves. You see, like there's profits from my book that are going to go to the Canadian Women's Foundation. And I was reading on their website and communicated with them, and I was like, oh my God, why are there so many? It's true. There's a lot of women who are being abused, not only physically abused, but mentally abused, which is what I went through with my ex-relationship. I mean, I came out of it like totally broken. Like, I don't know who I was anymore, where I was. The only thing I knew is like, I'm out of it and I need to rebuild myself, So.
So you've taken the bad experience and made something wonderful out of it. Well, I want to give you a chance to tell us about where your websites are and that kind of thing. Would you do that
Yeah,
for me?
for sure, of course. Well, I have a blog, a website, which is CathyRafferty.com. I also have a crpublishing.com because I self-published, but I'm actually looking for a literary agent right now. I'm writing up my proposals and stuff. And obviously, like you said at the beginning, on Twitter at Rafferty Cathy. And Facebook, you can find me on Facebook also. I have my page. And yeah, that's where you can find me. If people want to communicate with me, it's Cathy at CathyRafferty.com. So,
Great. So just hold on a second. I need to do a little spiel, and
yes.
I'll be right back with you. For those listening, I want to say thanks to OurTruth.com for broadcasting this show. You can find more information about me and my book series, The Archangel Jeremiel and the War to Conquer Heaven, at www.john-j-higgins.com, and the website for this radio show, www.hangingwithhiggins.com. And with that, I wish you a good night.